Hello, and welcome. We are so excited to have you join us for today's webinar, which will focus on applying for your U.S. student visa. My name is Grace Fuller, and I serve as the Manager of International Student Experience and Engagement at the International Students and Programs Office. And I'll hand it over to my colleague to introduce herself.
Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening to everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Gabriella Hoffman, and I work alongside Grace. I'm the Assistant Director of International Student Experience and Engagement, also at ISPO.
All right, so a few housekeeping notes before we begin. So you are in listen-only mode, which means you can hear us, but unfortunately we can't hear you. So in order to communicate with us throughout the webinar, we encourage you to utilize the Q&A feature to submit any questions you may have. If for some reason we have set aside a time at the end for an open question and answer session, so we hope to get many of your questions answered then. If for some reason we don't get to a question today, you can also reach out to us via icontact@ucsd.edu. And finally, we are also recording, so you'll be able to review this webinar as well as all of our previous webinars at iwebinars.ucsd.edu. So again, this is a little bit of what your Q&A control panel looks like. As a quick note, the chat feature has been disabled. So the Q&A feature will be the primary way that you'll communicate with us as panelists. And you can submit questions throughout the entire presentation. So while we have dedicated time at the end to answer questions, if there's a question that comes up, if there's a slide that you're a little confused by, feel free to submit that question and we'll do our best to get to it. And with that, I'll hand it over to Gabi to go over applying for a US student visa.
Great. Thank you, Grace, so much. We're going to go ahead and get started here. So as Grace mentioned, my name is Gabi Hoffman. I work in the International Students and Programs Office, and we support our students in their very first steps in coming to the United States and getting their visa paperwork. So let's go over some of the basics here as we launch into the presentation. To obtain your F1 or J1 visa for studies at UC San Diego, you need to request certain documentation. So you must either have your SEVIS form I-20 to apply for an F1 visa, or a SEVIS form DS 2019 to apply for a J1 visa. Whether you're applying for an I-20 or a DS 2019, both can be requested using our online system called the iPortal. We began accepting applications on March 1st through the iPortal, so you're welcome to apply for your I-20 or DS 2019 now if you haven't already done so. The direct link for the iPortal is iportal.ucsd.edu. Most students will receive a visa document with a September start date. However, we are aware that many students begin their programs of study earlier than this, depending on your department, if you're in an early start program of some kind. If you require an earlier start date on your visa document, you are able to request this within the iPortal. Please be aware that our processing time for visa documents is 15 business days for a complete application, so we recommend that you apply early to avoid delays. Once you receive your I-20 or DS 2019, you can book your visa appointment at your local U.S. Embassy if available to obtain your visa stamp in your passport for entry into the U.S. If you are unable to secure your visa in time for entry to the U.S. this summer or this fall, you may need to consider beginning your program remotely until you obtain your visa. And I do just want to make a quick note here that we are providing information to our students as we learn more about Fall 21's plans for UC San Diego in terms of online study, online courses, and we will be communicating that information to you as soon as we learn more. Okay, so a little bit more about submitting a request in the iPortal. Once you accept your offer of admission in the applicant portal through admissions and have paid your deposit to UC San Diego, you will receive an invitation email to the Triton checklist a few days after that. So there you will receive instructions on logging into the iPortal to request your immigration documents. So when you submit your iPortal application, you'll be asked to submit a copy of your passport and financial support documents that meet the minimum funding requirements for an I-20 or DS 2019. The financial support documents must not be older than 6 months and can come if you're funded by an outside source, if it's a scholarship of some kind, or if you have personal or family funds. It doesn't matter where that comes from. To find out the minimum funding requirements for a document, please go to inewstudent.ucsd.edu and it will list out the minimum funding requirements for your document. If you will be applying for an F1 visa and will require a Form I-20, we will be able to issue these electronically. We will upload a copy of your I-20 directly to your iPortal application. This is under current guidelines that we have from the Student and Exchange Visitor Program. We have not received any other guidance yet from the Student Exchange Visitor Program about hard copy issuance. This was electronic issuance of something we began last year with the pandemic. This is still the way we are operating. So you should be getting your I-20 directly in your iPortal application for download, and is applicable. It is able to be used for a visa appointment. So you'll be able to download it, print it, and sign your document directly from that iPortal submission. If you're applying for a J1 and you require a Form DS 2019, you will have to have a hard copy, and the iPortal application will ask you for your mailing preference. If you have any questions during this process, we encourage you to reach out to our advisors. We have specific time slots dedicated to newly admitted students to answer those questions, and we'll be happy to assist with any questions that come up. So now with some additional resources I wanted to go over, obviously, as we are still in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are seeing the light hopefully soon for things to start to return to normal. But we do want to acknowledge, of course, that there are many, many challenges our students are still facing in coming to the United States in terms of visa availability and travel restrictions. We are very aware of this, and we are trying to provide as much information as we can to our students about how this impacts your start for the fall quarter. So please keep an eye out for emails that we will be sending you, website updates. Most importantly, on our iUpdates page, you can see here, iupdates.ucsd.edu. We have current information about enrollment, visa and immigration documents, and travel that will be updated as we learn more about fall 2021. If you are unable to secure a visa appointment due to limited availability or you're impacted by travel restrictions, again, know that you can begin your program remotely in your home country if needed. That is something the university is still making available to students so that they can begin their programs on time. More information about course availability will be made available a little bit later in the spring into early summer. You do not need the I-20 or DS 2019 or a valid visa to enroll at UC San Diego if you will be remaining in your home country for the fall, but you do need those documents for entry purposes into the US at a later point. So again, it's really important to keep up to date with the iUpdates information, all the emails that we send, of course, the webinars that we provide as well, so you know exactly what to do. Another great resource that we encourage you to become familiar with is the Return to Learn dashboard. It's simply go to returntolearn.ucsd.edu, and you can find information there about campus efforts to return to in-person teaching and learning in the safest way possible. This is a great resource to share with your family members as well if they are concerned about you traveling to the US. The dashboard shows data of UC San Diego students and employees who have tested for COVID, how many positive cases there are, and so forth. As of yesterday's data, there have been 6 students residing on campus who tested positive, 6 students residing off campus who tested positive, and 2 campus employees who tested positive in the last 7 days. So that is a very, very low percentage of positive cases among our campus population. That is something UCSD is quite proud of. We've kept our cases extremely low throughout the pandemic. So I encourage you to use this resource, stay up to date on our current numbers, again, at returntolearn.ucsd.edu.
All right, thank you so much, Gabi. So before we transition into our open question and answer session, I just want to highlight a few upcoming pre-arrival webinars as well as important deadlines and reminders for you. So as you can see on the screen, we have some upcoming webinars that are topics of interest for our incoming students. So on April 29th, we'll be joined by Housing and Dining and Hospitality, also known as HDH, to discuss undergraduate student housing. On May 5th, we'll have our colleagues from Student Health Services discuss insurance and immunization requirements for international students. On May 6th, we'll cover CVIS transfers, so if you are in the United States and transferring your record. On May 11th, we'll discuss campus safety, and on May 18th, we'll discuss student life and getting involved on campus. So again, iwebinars.ucsd.edu is kind of your one-stop shop for both registering for upcoming webinars, as well as watching any previous webinar recordings. And then in terms of some important deadlines and dates, so like Gabi mentioned, you can begin requesting your visa documents via the iPortal now. So once you have accepted your admission, paid your deposit, and waited those 24 hours, we encourage you to go ahead and visit iportal.ucsd.edu. I mentioned our pre-arrival webinar that we have. Just a friendly reminder that May 1st is the deadline to accept admission for undergraduate first-year students, although I think some of you already have done that, so congratulations and a warm welcome. July 1st is the transcript postmark deadline, and then we are so excited to offer new international student orientation to welcome our new international students to UC San Diego. That will take place in September of 2021, but for up-to-date announcements, you can always visit iorientation.ucsd.edu. Great. So like I mentioned, we have set aside a pretty sizable amount of today's webinar to focus on live questions and answers. We know that a lot of things come up during this time. Our students have many questions, and so we host these webinars to make ourselves available to you and hope to answer your questions. So our first question reads, I was wondering if I can request a student visa while on the wait list. Thus, the embassy doesn't know what college I will attend in the fall specifically when requesting it in the upcoming week. And Gabi, I'm wondering if you can speak to this a little bit.
Yeah, so if I understand your question correctly, you are still on the wait list for admission to a specific college or to a specific university. Typically, the consular officials, when you go to apply for a visa, they want to know that you have firm admission to university. They'll usually look for a letter of admission at your visa interview. And it's the same thing, actually, even requesting your documents from us. We want to make sure you have full admission to the university. So we wouldn't be able to issue the documents until you're fully admitted here. We need to make sure, basically, you wouldn't even be able to access the system to request your documents until you're fully admitted. So that does have to happen first, if I'm understanding your question correctly.
Great, thank you, Gabi. We have a few other questions that have come through that I think will be for the benefit of the group today. So our next question reads, how much time does it take to get the I-20 reprinted and shipped after we have received the I-20 via the iPortal?
Okay, so as was answered here, how much time does it take to get the I-20 reprinted if you need to request a hard copy? It's a 2-day turnaround, so you don't have to wait the full 15 days again. If it's a reprint, then it's a 2-day turnaround to send you the hard copy via eShip Global. eShip Global is the third-party service we use for students to set up accounts so you can pay for your shipment to get to your home country.
Great. And then another question that has come through is the question reads, I have an American F1 visa and the deadline is 2022. Am I able to travel to the United States using my current visa with my I-20 of UCSD before September of this year?
This is a great question because we know we have a lot of students who have been in the US before, have been either in high school or university before UC San Diego. And their visas were issued for many years into the future. So as long as you have that F1 visa that is still valid, so in this case, it doesn't expire until 2022, as long as it is still valid and you use it along with your UCSD I-20, it is still valid for use. You still can use that visa to enter the United States, travel back and forth until its expiration in 2022.
So those are answering the questions we have had come through the Q&A feature right now. Again, I encourage you, if anything comes up, to please submit them. I will just take a quick moment to note that ways to get in contact with our office. So as you can see on the slide here, you can reach out to us via the email inewstudent@ucsd.edu. Additionally, I want to highlight a new feature that we have available on our website. So if you go to ispo.ucsd.edu, in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you'll see actually a chat bot where you can ask Triton. And that is a chat feature that we're really excited to share with students. And it's preloaded with a lot of frequently asked questions, common questions that students have as they're beginning their journey at UC San Diego and really throughout their journey at UC San Diego. So if you have a quick question or you're wanting to learn more information, there are many ways to get in touch with our office, but I would want to highlight that new feature because it's something we're excited to share with our student population and we hope will be useful to you. All right, so we're going to give it 1 minute or so before we end our time. So if you do have a question, I encourage you to submit it through our Q&A feature. Again, that's on the bottom of your Zoom control bar. Know that our office is here and available to you. We are so excited to welcome you as a part of the Triton community. Congratulations again on your admission to UC San Diego. That's such an accomplishment. And if there are no other questions, we'll go ahead and wrap up this webinar. But again, we have many future webinars coming up that we encourage you to attend. We hope that you find these webinars useful to you as you begin your journey. So with that, we hope you have a great rest of your day. Like Gabi said, whether it be morning, afternoon, or evening where you are, we hope you have a great rest of your day and we'll hope to see you again at a future webinar. Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone.